In the last decade, there has been a 70% increase in the number of carers diagnosed with depression, a 24% increase in carers reporting poor health, a 30% increase in those experiencing anxiety, and a 65% increase in the number of carers who have no access to respite. 83% of carers do not have access to appropriate respite. That is absolutely outrageous. They're absolutely outrageous. They're not appalling, Minister. They're not appalling. They're the words from the submission from family carers. So you're saying those figures are wrong? Okay. Welcome to Family Carers Ireland tonight to the gallery. And I was at their briefing today, and I fully support the Carers Ireland in their pre-budget submission, A Decade Lost. Their very reasonable demands are outlined in this motion and in the Sinn Féin amendment, and I welcome the opportunity to speak on these on the private members' bill. However, I also have to put on record my astonishment at the hypocrisy of the Labour Party on issues such as this. They refer in the motion to the period of adjustment when they were in office from 2011 to 2016. And this to me is a very dishonest way of describing a period of brutal austerity, deliberately aimed at the most vulnerable, the weakest and those least able to resist. And Labour ministers were at the front line of this brutal assault on the very people they now have put a private motions forward on. And I think from the submission from the Carers of Ireland, they say carers' health, both physical and mental, has deteriorated, as has their access to vital supports and services, including respite. Carers repeatedly reported in 2009 up to 2019 that they need more respite and home care hours to support them to be healthy. Despite such calls for support, in the last decade there has been a 70% increase in the number of carers diagnosed with depression, a 24% increase in carers reporting poor health, a 30% increase in those experiencing anxiety, and a 65% increase in the number of carers who have no access to respite. The hypocrisy of the government is equally astonishing and is also equally dishonest. Once again, we have in the government's amendment weasel words about a commitment to Sláintecare, when in fact Sláintecare, as a programme of serious reform to our not fit for purpose healthcare system, has been effectively shelved. A key point of the Sláintecare report was our piecemeal approach to implementation, a bit here and a bit there, would undermine the whole project. Without Sláintecare implemented as intended, there would be no abatement of the health crisis. It's a crisis that is worsening on a daily basis. For example, 6,300 families have been approved for home care assistance are not going to get it. Funding has been frozen. An internal document from the HSE referred to the possibility or the probability of a 500 million cut in home health bars to try and keep within the budget for this year. The HSE and the Minister says there's no cuts, but in the reality 6,300 families have been awarded home health and they're not being given. Just to make a point, the respite hours are key for the carers, and I'll finish on this now in a moment. 83% of carers do not have access to appropriate respite. That is absolutely outrageous. They're absolutely outrageous. They're not appalling, Minister. They're not appalling. The findings are damning indictment of government's attitude towards carers and are completely at odds with Sláintecare's core objective to shift the delivery of care from the acute setting towards care in the community at home. They're the words from the submission from family carers. So you're saying those figures are wrong? Okay. The other point that they made very clearly was they need the increase in the hours of a carer can work and study from 15 hours to 18.5 hours per week. I think that would be very, very important to implement as well. So I'd like to see a real, genuine approach from the government to try and deal with these issues. And rather than looking at tax cuts, these are the issues we should be looking at and putting money into these.